I almost didn't finish this painting, and not because it was hard, but because it forced me to confront something about myself I didn't even expect.
And finishing this portrait ended up changing the way I think about creativity completely.
So this video is part of a series I called Creative Reset, and I'm documenting creativity, self-discovery, and figuring things out along the way. I started this portrait in one season of my life and ended it in the next season. This time, I wanted to try something different, something unfamiliar. I started this portrait very excited. Trying something new felt refreshing, but somewhere along the way, I lost interest. And not because I didn't care about the painting anymore, but because it stopped being easy.
The eyes didn't look how I imagined. The nose felt wrong. Even the blending didn't work how I thought it would.
And suddenly, the excitement turned into frustration. And that's when the thought appeared. Maybe I should just quit. So I took a break. A long one. Almost 3 months. And the funny thing is, the painting itself wasn't the problem. The thing that made me procrastinate was my thoughts. You know that saying,
fear makes the wolf seem bigger than it actually is? Yeah, I felt that.
The more I thought about I needed to finish this painting, the bigger the problem became in my head. So obviously, I avoided it. And that made me realize something. Most of the time, it's not the thing itself that scares us, but the stories we tell ourselves about it. Our brains love, I hope I pronounced this right, familiarity. You know what I mean. We build identities around our habits, our routines, and the things we already know how to do. So when we try something unfamiliar, our brain treats it as a threat. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's unknown. And this is what last year taught me. The more we step out of our comfort zone, the more normal it becomes. And little by little, new patterns form, new habits, new beliefs. And somewhere along the line, it all just becomes natural. The things that felt uncomfortable becomes part of who we are. And I also want to add here that these uncomfortable things might just be the things we need in life. And something else happens when we start to invest in ourselves. Even in small ways, it can create a ripple effect. I like to think of it like the butterfly effect. Maybe you start drawing again, or maybe you start a hobby you liked, crocheting, or maybe you give yourself time to be creative again. At first, it starts to feel like a small act of self-care, but slowly it starts affecting other areas of your life. And I've actually seen how this has happened in other people's lives, as well as my own. Your confidence grows, your mindset shifts, and you start taking better care of yourself. And before you realize it, that one small decision begins to snowball into bigger change, and your identity evolves. Have you ever started something and then along the way you stopped because it stopped feeling easy? By the time I came back to finishing this painting, something else changed too. My environment. And not only my environment, me too. I started this portrait in an old workspace, and I'm finishing it in my new temporary art studio. It really does feel symbolic in a way, because this painting started in one season of my life and ended in another one. So I finally decided to finish the painting. And not because it became easier, but because I stopped waiting for the perfect moment. And finishing it taught me something very important. Now I can paint portraits. But seriously, it taught me something. It made me realize the type of art I truly love. My natural style is colorful, expressive, a little fantasy, a little spiritual, but it's me. And somewhere along the way, I realized I started creating art based on what I think others might like. instead of doing what I actually enjoy. So this creative reset is part of finding why we create, why we do things for ourselves, reconnecting with our true selves and what we want to do. I think creativity is something we need in our lives, not because we all have to be artists, but because it helps us realize things about ourselves. Life's full of problems, and creativity solves them. It helps us process things, slow down, reflect. It expresses the things we don't know how to say. So here's my question for you, and I really want you to answer it in the comments. What is your one creative project that feels uncomfortable? The one you have been avoiding because it's uncomfortable. So if this resonates with you, this video is part of my series called Creative Reset Diaries, and I'm documenting growth, creativity, and figuring things out along the way. Thank you for being here, and remember, go create something uncomfortable, because that's where the growth lies. So if you want to be part of this journey, subscribe and join me.